loud. All right, so it looks like we are now recording, and welcome to our February meeting of the Greater Fredericksburg chapter of the American Recorder Society. I am your host, Kelly Kasich, and we are going to get going with today's presentation and program, and hopefully everybody was able to access the music that I sent out. And oh, yep, we're good. And if not, you know, we've got play-alongs. We'll make do, right? Okay, let's see. Somebody just texted me. Let me make sure it's nobody trying to get on. Nope, we're good. All right. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to make sure I share sound this time. Vicky was just telling us about the word game called Birdle. This is a music word game, so I looked it up, and I'm going to have to read the instructions, but if anybody's into word games, Birdle is, you just look at it, Google it, and it'll come up, and you guess the word. So, all right. Today, we are going to be talking about the Purcell brothers, friends of the recorder. So this is Henry and Daniel Purcell. Is anybody not aware of the Purcells? You've ever heard of the Purcells? So we've at least heard of the Purcells. Great.
So I was at a concert one time and somebody was talking about the Purcells, and I was sitting next to an English guy and he said it's Purcell. He gave me this big long lecture about it. Just warning you.
Yes, I have heard that before too, and had people attempt to correct me, but you know what? Too bad. I speak Midwestern American English. It's Purcell.
And you are, after all, Dr. Kaz.
Right. So, you know, whatever. If Henry Purcell has a problem with it, he can come back and correct me himself. So we'll start with his bio. Henry Purcell was born in London, England, in a bad part of town. So this is actually quite interesting. There's apparently a strip of London that was considered they called it like the devil's neighborhood or something. It was actually the bad part of town, and that's where he was born. He's basically considered one of the greatest English composers of all time. And he definitely held that distinction until about the 20th century, when we got another influx of English composers coming to the stage. Henry was the second of 3 sons, and after his father's early death, he was placed under the guardianship of his uncle, who was a musician. So a lot of times our professions went in families, and if you had an uncle to teach you the profession, that's the one you went into. Thomas arranged for Henry to become a chorister at the Royal Chapel at Westminster Abbey, and he studied with Henry Cooke, Pelham Humphrey, and Dr. John Blow. So Dr. John Blow is the real important one here. He was a very important organist. Henry eventually assumed Dr. Blow's position as the organist at Westminster Abbey, and Dr. Blow actually retired early to give the position to Henry Purcell. So that should say something about what kind of an organist Henry Purcell was. In addition to his many sacred posts, Henry also had many connections to theater music and wrote a great deal of secular music, including a large number of pieces for Queen Mary and dances for John Playford's collection. I would also like to point out, like, here's a warning. If you ever go to Wikipedia to do the bulk of your research, Wikipedia tries to paint Henry Purcell as just completely involved in sacred music and like make him sound like a saint. But we've got this little CD here, The Art of the Bawdy Song, 18th century bawdy song recorded by the Baltimore Consort. This is the first classical CD to incur a parental warning. Fully a third of the pieces on this CD are by Henry Purcell. So If you believe Wikipedia, it makes Purcell sound like a saint, but he actually had equal facility in both sacred and very secular music. This is a great CD, by the way. You can probably find some of the tracks online, and it's pretty funny too. Henry was thought to be about 36 years old when he died, and it's thought that he died of tuberculosis. There's some strange stories about his wife kicking him out and he died from exposure or something like that, but a tuberculosis sounds like more of a reasonable diagnosis. And in his last will and testament, he left everything to his wife Frances, and she is responsible for getting his works published after his death. So this is pretty important because not a lot of composers would necessarily have had their compositions published during their lifetime, and yet publishing works during your lifetime was a source of revenue. So, you know, maybe Henry was a great composer, but it didn't sound like he was the best of businessmen. He didn't go out and try to get his works published while he was alive. His wife wound up doing that. And he is buried adjacent to the organ in Westminster Abbey. So, you know, that would creep me out if I ever got to play that organ at Westminster Abbey, to be sitting at the organ, look down and be like, hey, Henry, how's it going? All right. So there's actually a feast day in the Episcopal Church's calendar for Purcell, Handel, and Bach, and that is July 28th. So this coming July 28th, have a drink for Henry. That's how I think he would have wanted to be remembered. Think the Body Song. All right, Henry's use of the recorder. In 1673, after his voice broke, he went from being a chorister to the assistant to the organ builder John Hingston. In addition to maintaining and building organs, Hingston was also the keeper of the king's wind instruments. Now, I suspect the organ was also considered a wind instrument, but having worked with Hingston, I suspect that Purcell also became familiar with the wind instruments, oboe, bassoon, recorder, flute, and became comfortable deploying them in his orchestrations. So you will find that when he writes for an orchestra and has winds in there, he's not shy about using wind instruments along with the strings. I have not found any sonatas or chamber music that specifically call for the recorder in Henry's music. Rather, it seems that he used the recorder as a secondary instrument. So that would mean that the primary instrument would be maybe the oboe, and at some point in the piece, the oboist would put down the oboe and pick up the recorder, play a movement, and then pick up their oboe again. So he seemed to use the recorder as an auxiliary instrument. Now, I'm going to go a little bit out of order with our pieces today. I don't know why I didn't fix it on my presentation, but we're going to come back to that one. And we're going to start today with The Hole in the Wall from the play for Dancing Master. So just a little bit about this tune. This tune originally appears as Movement 8 in Henry Purcell's theatrical production of Abdenzar from 1695. And later was incorporated into Playford's Dancing Master as early as the 1701 edition. I didn't find the 1701 edition. I found the 1709 that is linked here down at the bottom. So if you want to go see it, it is number 222 in that edition. The name Hole in the Wall had several meaning in Purcell's day, and you know, if you also listen to Purcell's body songs, I think you would have enjoyed the multiple meanings. The first reference for a hole in the wall is descriptive of a pub or tavern that is nestled in between a row of buildings. So they often said that the pub or tavern within that row of buildings was the hole in the wall. The second refers to an actual pub in Dublin that served soldiers from nearby barracks through an actual hole in the wall. So you would order your beer and they'd stick it through a hole in the wall because, you know, you don't want the soldiers messing up your pub. And the third reference goes back to Shakespeare, where lovers would exchange words or notes through a hole in the wall. And considering the subject of the theatrical production Ebdon's Are, I suspect this was the meaning that was being invoked. Just a little bit about John Playford. John Playford was a London bookseller and most known for his publication of the English Dancing Master. So this set of books came out in 1651 and was updated until the early 1700s. So like I said, I found the 1709 edition. So for over 50 years, this book of dances was updated. The original book went through many reprints, and here we go. Now, I have some fun for us. We get to see people actually dancing the hole in the wall. So we'll pull that up. Oh, we have to watch an ad. I'm sorry. I'll try to turn that down. We'll wait for the ad to be over. All right. So here we have The Hole in the Wall by the Germantown Country Dancers. And so you can see the dance. So you kind of get the idea. It's a very gentle dance. You didn't see people leaping up and doing kicks or stomps. It was a very, very gentle form of exercise. If you would like to hear a consort playing it, I've got a performance linked here. I also have another group of dancers also dancing to it. And here are the IMSLP files if you want a copy of that, and the English Dancing Master I've already got listed. So we are going to go to our play along. Bring that up. Last week, or not last week, but last month, Vicki talked about, she sent us a little file about how you can change the playback speed on these play-alongs if you find that they are too fast or too slow for your liking. And you come to the little wheel here, the settings wheel, and you can go to the top menu which says playback speed. You can hit normal, and then you can change it going faster or slower, and you can also choose a custom speed. So, and you can actually do this. I'll pull up our Rumble too. You can also change speeds on Rumble, and I'll show you where that is if you haven't tried already. Come on, Rumble. Might have, okay.
1, 2.
Stop. So you have to hit the play button, but there's also the little settings wheel here on Rumble, and you can come to speed and then you can slow it down or you can speed it up. It doesn't look like there's a custom setting on Rumble, so if you prefer using the Rumble format to the YouTube format, you can still slow it down if you want to. Okay, well, I'll just leave it there for now. So let's play. Let's start with everybody playing soprano, or whoever wants to play soprano. We will go through the soprano part now. This is Hole in the Wall. And for some reason my head joint is on backwards. I don't know how I did that. All right. 1, a 2E, and 3. Here we go. And on our play along, we will do that repeat. All right, next up, altos. Everybody playing alto? This one's for you. I think that's right. There we go. 1, 2, 3. Everybody okay in that alto part? We're getting thumbs ups? Okay. Tenors. Anybody playing tenor? Just wait a second. Let everybody switch instruments. Here we go. Tenor. 1, 2, 3. Somebody else is trying to enter. Sorry, my fault, my fault. This is the second half tenors. Ready? Here we go. Tenors, let's repeat that just because I got distracted. This is the second half of Hole in the Wall. Tenors. 1, 2, 3. Is that okay, tenors? Okay? All right. And finally, everybody playing bass. It's not the funnest bass part of the day, but, you know, it's not the worst bass part of the day. And hello to Brooks, who just joined us.
Yes, hello.
Hello, Brooks. Welcome. All right, so we're on altos right now. 1, 2, 3. All right. So now we will go to our play-alongs, and since we've got our Rumble play-along up, a little bigger. And Brooks, we had just gone over a little bit about Henry Purcell's bio, but we also went over where you can, in the play-alongs, change the speed if things are going too fast and you'd like to slow down, or if you think things aren't fast enough and you want to speed up. Both Rumble and the YouTube platform will adjust the speed if you come to the settings.
Really neat.
So that is one way that we can kind of customize our play-along. So here we go, Hole in the Wall. We will be taking that repeat, and enjoy.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Would anybody like to try that again, but like hear what it sounds like slowed down? Yeah? We're getting a vote for let's hear what that sounds like slowed down. Okay, so we're gonna try the 75% of normal one, and we'll see what happens when we slow it down. So here we go. It starts pretty quick.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Interesting experiment. There's a little distortion in the sound, but that is an option for all the play-alongs there. All right. Like I said, we're going to go a little bit out of order, just because I want to play the things that work well with the consort before we get to the harder things. So we're going to look a little bit at Daniel Purcell. We're going to look a little bit at him for a moment. And Daniel was the youngest of the three Purcell brothers. And like Henry, he probably became a chorister around the age of 14 at the Royal Chapel. And like Henry, he also composed sacred and secular music. He was appointed to the organist at the Magdalen College in Oxford. Daniel did not compose as much sacred music. Oh, I've missed that word in my sentence. As much sacred music as Henry did. His output wasn't as large, but there are still some of his pieces that are still used today in the Anglican Church, his Magnificat and his Nunc Dimittis. However, despite his less large output of sacred music, he does have quite a bit of secular music, and it is thought that Daniel was actually the one who completed Henry's unfinished opera, The Indian Queen, after Henry's death. After doing some secular music in London for the London Theatre for a while, in 1713 he accepted a position as organist at St. Andrew's Church in Holborn, and he held that position until his death, and is actually, again, buried near the organ at St. Andrew's Church. So, not creepy at all. A difference between Daniel and Henry is that most of Daniel's music was actually published during his lifetime, as opposed to Henry, whose music was published by his wife after his death. Now, Daniel uses the recorder differently than Henry. Henry tended to use it in ensemble and as an auxiliary instrument. Daniel actually, I wonder if he played the recorder. He actually wrote a set of recorder sonatas and chamber music specifically for the recorder, and I've got them here. So they are for alto recorder, and if you're in the music, if you're in the you're looking for some fairly reasonable alto recorder music that's not overly virtuosic but is satisfying to play, I highly recommend these. The Purcell 3 sonatas for alto block float. So have that. And I actually did go ahead and I linked up a performance of one of the sonatas, so you can go back and listen to it and see if you like it. I really like it. They're very accessible, and he apparently was very fastidious about his copy work. So when people look at the first edition that he submitted for publication, there were virtually no mistakes whatsoever. Carefully corrected by the author. Okay, so we're going to go on to some of his secular music. This first one that we're going to listen to is his Hornpipe. We learned back in March, almost a year ago, during our Irish music, that the hornpipe was a dance that emerged in Britain and Ireland during the 16th century, and it was a dance that was developed on sailing ships, and some of its movements were supposed to be reminiscent of what happens to a person as they lurch to and fro, and there are both slow and fast hornpipes. I actually have some examples of people playing Daniel Purcell's hornpipe, but I could not find an example of anybody dancing to this hornpipe, so I really like this guitar version. And apparently we have to sit through an ad. Okay, we'll get there. Oh, look! We can clean out our ears! How lovely! Okay. So I really liked that performance. And that man's nails were amazing. His nails on his left hand, amazing. All right, so we're going to come on over here and get ready to do our hornpipe. Okay. All right, so this is a three-part. The soprano is on the top line. The tenor or the alto can play the middle line, so it is playable by both instruments, and then we have bass on the bottom. So we're going to start with soprano. So anybody playing the soprano? We're in 3/2, so I'm going to count to 3, and here we go. 1, 2, 3. Oh, and then we can go on to the second part. Sorry, we will do the repeats on the play along. Here's the second half, sopranos. 1, 2, 3. All right. Everybody who wants to play the middle line, either on tenor or alto. So choose your instrument. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Some tricky syncopation there. How'd everybody do? You okay? Okay. And if you were playing bass. So here we go, bass. Oh, wait a second. Make sure everybody has their bass. All right. 1, 2, 3. All right. So we will do our play along and grab the instrument you want. All right, here we go.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
we try that a little bit slower? What do you think? Bill's giving me a big enthusiastic thumbs up. Let's try the custom setting on the YouTube. So instead of 75% of normal, let's try 90% of normal and see how that turns out, okay? So here we go, our grand experiment. One more time.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Bill's giving me a thumbs up, like that was just a little bit better. What about Justin and Ben? How was that? Yeah, we're getting some thumbs up there. So those are some options there. Henry Purcell's dance, Hole in the Wall, wound up making it into the Playford dances, but I could not find that Daniel Purcell's dances made it into the Playford collection. So that doesn't mean that they aren't there. It just means there's a lot of dances in the Playford collection, and I never found it. So, I don't know. We're going to go on to our second dance by Daniel Purcell, and this is a minuet. So when we did our Renaissance dances last year about this time, we didn't really encounter the minuet. The minuet is very much a Baroque dance. It really came into its own in the 18th century, and so the minuet is a social dance for two people, said to have originated in France in 3/4 time and was very popular, like I said, in the 18th century. So we have a little excerpt from Baroque dance. They're showing us this dance, so we'll watch a little bit of it. There's a lot of getting up on your toes. Oh, we have to watch another ad? Okay. Here we go. So this is from their larger project of the Introduction to Baroque Dance.
The minuet, like the courant, has its own characteristic step units, such as the minuet step of 2 movements as described by Rameau. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The fact that these minuet steps take up 6 beats has implications for the musician playing minuets written in 3/4 or 3/8. It is helpful to think of the music measures in pairs, with the first measure having a strong beat and the second measure having a less strong beat.
So I hope everybody got that it takes 2 measures of music to complete 1 cycle of steps in the minuet, so that every 2 bars you're going to have a stronger beat. That can help you when you're learning a foreign minuet, something you've never done before. Let's pull up our minuet. And all right, so we'll start with, this is another one that's in 3 parts. The soprano's on the top, and you have the option of tenor or alto on the middle line and bass on the bottom. So we'll start with everybody who wants to play the soprano line. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Go on. So very simple. If you were going to be accompanying a dance, you probably would repeat these phrases many, many times and use your ornaments to make them more exciting. All right, second line, tenor or alto, choose, but choose wisely. Here we go. Everybody got the instrument they want? All right. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Again, if this were played at a ball, you'd probably repeat it a zillion times and need to ornament. Everybody who wants to try the bass line? All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. As we do our play along, each line will be repeated as indicated in the music. So choose your instrument. Here we go.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Yay, how'd you do, Bill? All right, good job. All right, now here's where it gets a little bit harder. Harder music, harder to do over play-alongs online. Maybe we'll get to do it in person once it warms up a little bit. We're going to head back to Henry Purcell for a moment. And we're going to look at the Sound the Trumpet from Come Ye Sons of Art. So, Come Ye Sons of Art is the second of 2 odes written for the birthday of Queen Mary II. The ode was written in 1694, so just shortly before Purcell died. The text is attributed to Nahum Tate. The primary woodwinds used in this ode are oboes, so it's accompanied by strings, oboes, and we have strings, oboes, and brass and some percussion in the actual ensemble. But in one of the movements, and it's actually not the movement we're playing, Strike the Viols, the oboist double on recorder. So I actually have been brought in to play Strike the Viol on recorder twice because the oboists did not play recorder. So I've gotten to play this piece, this birthday ode twice because oboists don't tend to double on recorder anymore. So we have a couple examples. We have a performance. Here's the actual movement that the recorder shows up in. So we had talked about earlier that Purcell seems to use the recorder in ensembles and as a secondary instrument rather than writing for specifically the recorder. This is the actual movement from the ode where the recorder shows up. We'll just listen to a little bit of that. So this is the movement I've gotten to play twice in performance. We'll just wait for the ad to go. Okay, here we go. Let's listen to a little of that. Everybody hear the recorder? Okay, I'll stop it right there. You spend a lot of the movement just going bum, 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 just playing two little quarter notes. When you get to the instrumental section where the singer is no longer singing, you get to do a little bit of figuration. But you can kind of see how Purcell was maybe thinking of the recorder as a secondary instrument because it just didn't get to play all that technical of music, as opposed to what the oboes got to do in the rest of the ode. Okay, but that's the movement the recorder actually shows up in. Here is the one we are going to be playing, and I found a little performance. We'll just listen to a little bit of this. I think it's kind of cute because the singers are not native English speakers, and you will hear that as they are singing, so it's kind of fun. Here we go, just a little bit. All right, so it's a nice performance. The ladies did a nice job. All right, we'll pull up our play along. There's also the IMSLP link if you want to get the individual parts. So, all right. This is a harder piece to make a play along for, just because it's because of the way it's set out. It's not set out quite like the dances. That's nice and homophonic. Purcell was a master of the ground bass and rounds and putting lavish music on top of bass lines that didn't really go anywhere. So you will find that the tenor and the bass line in this piece basically don't do much of anything. It does the same thing over and over, and it just switches keys once. So we're going to start with the bass line. Anybody who wants to play the bass line, you're going to get bored pretty quickly. But here we go. Get your bass line. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. We do change keys with that figure when we go into the B section, but the rhythm and and the general shape of the musical information is the same. So that's basically the bass line. Anybody who wants to play the tenor part, we are also doing pretty much the same thing throughout the whole piece. So if you want to try a little bit of the tenor, it looks a little bit rhythmically intimidating with all those rests, but it's not too bad. You'll get the hang of it because we do it so much. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, I think you guys get the hang of it, right? Yeah, we got the hang of it. Now, the big interesting stuff happens in the 2 alto parts. And I am sorry for any of the soprano players. However, soprano players, take heart. If you take the first alto part down the octave, it fits beautifully on soprano. So any soprano players, you can play that first alto part down the octave on the soprano recorder and it will work. But we're going to play a little bit of the alto, each alto part, and then we're just going to go into the play along because it's a long piece, okay? So let's start with first alto. Here we go. Anybody who wants to play that first part, soprano's either down an octave or alto. 1, 2, 3, 4. Three, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. 3, 1. 3, 4. So you really have to count if you're doing the alto parts. You get a lot of rests. All right, second alto. You're going to try second alto. Here we go. 1. This is starting at measure 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3. All right. So sorry to throw you all in the deep end with this one, but we're just going to give it a try. Maybe we will take a little off the speed, huh? Take a little off the speed. Let's go to maybe not 75%. How about we'll try 85%. Bill's looking happier already. Okay. Good luck. I'll see you at the end.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I slowed down. That last note was excessively long, but did most people make it? Kinda, sorta. Yeah, that one's a harder one to do over the internet. So maybe when we get back together, when the weather warms up, we'll try it again. The last piece we won't go through together, but it's there for you. We have a bonus play along. Oops, where'd it go? There it is. We have a bonus play along, and it is the Fantasia number 2. The Fantasias were originally written for viola da gamba consort. The pieces themselves were written during a 2-week period in the summer of 1680, and a lot of these works are considered the last great consort works written for the gamba, and I would say that they're probably some of the last consort works written, period. So in the 16th centuries and the 17th centuries, works for consorts or groups of like instruments were very common, and in fact we recorders play consort music all the time. But as we move into the 18th century, different forms of chamber music start to become popular, and writing for a consort declined. And I actually have a lovely CD of the Fantasias and Inomines, and it's absolutely wonderful. It's done by a gamba consort, and yeah, I highly recommend these. So I have made a play along for them, and you can work on it on your own, and we'll maybe try to do it together. But this has been arranged for soprano, tenor, and bass, and it gets pretty high and pretty contrapuntal. So I just wanted to include it because it is basically the last of the consort music as we go into the 18th century. We don't get a lot of music like this written for a consort. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to stop recording. And if you have any questions or comments, do I want to stop? Yes, I want to